Okay, first thing you need to do is list the materials you're going to use. And here they are. You have most of your tables set up already. A couple of you are going to have to move to different spots. But here's what you have. You got a hanger, got a string, got a clamp, and then you'll have some weights. So that's what we're going to list here. So the materials you're going to need are string, weights, clamp, and a hanger. So then we're going to make a list of the 3 experiments that we're going to do. Okay, so the 3 experiments we're going to do. First experiment we're going to do, I'm going to divide my paper into thirds here. So the 3 experiments we're doing are testing length, testing weight, and testing amplitude. So the first experiment I'm going to do is I'm going to change the length of the pendulum. And measure. Now the lab is asking me to find period. The problem is period is the time it takes to just go once. And I'm not really doing that. I'm not really doing the time to just go once because that would be too inaccurate because you would just have it once, and if you didn't do it exactly right that one time, you would be off. So instead of doing it the time to go once, we're going to do it the time to go 10 times. Measure the time to make 10 oscillations. So the way that you're going to do that is you're just going to pull it back a set distance and let it go. One oscillation is going to the other side and back again. So one oscillation is going to the other side and then back. Other side and then back. Other side and then back. So once go to the other side and back, that's one oscillation. Okay, so that would be the length one. All right, next one is weight. Well, weight is something that depends upon gravity. And we said gravity is one of the things we want to talk about. So we don't really want to do mass and gravity at the same time. So instead of doing weight, we're going to do mass. So we're going to change mass of the pendulum and measure the time. Again, to do 10 oscillations, I'm just going to put ... to show that it's the same thing. And then the last one is going to be to change the amplitude. There we go. So there's our procedures. Doesn't need to be long and complicated. Doesn't need to explain everything that you're doing. Just the basics of what you're trying to accomplish. Okay. All right, explain how specifically you're going to measure the independent and the dependent variables. So the independent variables are going to be mass, length, amplitude, and the dependent variable is time. So for time, we're going to use the stopwatch. That one's easy. For mass, they're already marked, so we don't have to really measure them at all. We just have to look at them. For length, we're going to use a meter stick. And for amplitude, we're also going to use a meter stick, but we're going to do it slightly differently than the length. The length, you just measure how long it is. That's easy enough. For the amplitude, you're going to lay it under, I should specify what it is, lay the meter stick. Under the pendulum, and measure how far you pull back. Okay. Okay. Explain how many values for each independent variable and how many trials. So for each independent variable, that's a W, not a V. There we go. For each independent variable, we're going to do 5 different values. And we're going to do 3 trials for each. So the last thing we need to do on the setup is to figure out how we're going to record our data. So we're going to make a data chart. Each data table needs to have a title explaining what you're changing. Each data table needs to list what variables are constant and their values. Each table needs to have 5 different values for the independent variables, 5 rows, 3 different trials, columns. You'll need an additional column for the average trials. And you're also going to need for period. And you need a column for period. So here's how our chart is going to look. We're going to do amplitude first because amplitude's the trickiest one to do. So I want to show you how to do amplitude, and then you should be able to do the rest on your own. So we make a title. We're going to call this the amplitude graph, amplitude chart. Then you need to list the things that are constant. So you're going to keep the length constant, and you're going to keep the mass constant. So you're going to write down what those values are. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and measure mine real fast. Don't write these numbers down. These are the numbers for this one, not the ones that you're doing. So if I'm doing this and I'm measuring the length, I'm just going to measure from the weight up to the hanger. And if I do that, I get a number, 64. So I get 64 centimeters, so that would be 0.64 meters. So my length would be 0.64. Again, don't write this down. Okay, then I'm going to do my mass. And the mass I have on here is already listed. Mine is I think it's a 200 gram. Yep. Girls. This is a 200 gram mass, so in kilograms that'd be 0.2. Okay, so I got my title. I've measured my 2 values that are going to be constant. So then I'm ready to make my table. So my table is going to need 5 rows and 6 columns. Yes, now, don't write these numbers, but do make the table with me. So 5 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 columns. Okay. Then we just put a title for each of the columns are. So the first column is my amplitude values. My second column is my times for trial 1, trial 2, trial 3, then the average, then the period. Okay? And then you're going to pick your amplitude values. Now, most of the time, you're going to pick the values that you guys want to use. I'm going to tell you what amplitudes to use. The amplitudes you're going to use are 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters, 3, 4, 5. This is going to be difficult to measure, but you need the numbers to be small.
Did you write those numbers?
Yes, these go ahead and write down. Okay, so how are you going to do this experiment? You're going to take your meter stick, you're going to lay your meter stick underneath the pendulum so that 50 is right underneath your weight, or at least as close to right under your weight as you can get. Okay? Then what you're going to do is with your string as long as it can go, or at least very close to the ground. You want your string very close to the ground, so it's just above the meter stick. This is as far as mine will go. You're going to pull it back 1 centimeter, and you're going to let it swing. And you're going to time how long it takes to go back and forth 10 times. Once you've done that, you'll write that down for T1. Then you'll move on to T2, do a second trial, pull it back 1 centimeter, measure how long it takes to go back and forth, so on and so forth. Then trial 3, and then you move on and pull it back 2 centimeters and do the same thing again. So that's going to be the amplitude chart. Once you're done with the amplitude chart, you'll do 2 more charts. You'll do one for mass and one for length. For the length one, you'll have to write your constant mass and constant amplitude. For your mass one, you'll have to write your constant length and constant amplitude. Okay? And you're just going to get as many data trials done today as you can. Try to get through at least 2 charts if you can. That's what you should try for today.